Vusumuzi Sibanda is the chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum. He joins us now in our Joburg studio. Vusumuzi, you've heard what people are saying here. What do you say in response to what they are encountering?
Well, I think the first point is that there are a number of issues. Of course, they are a bit mixed up, but you will appreciate that to start with, the issue of the refugees and the problems that they had, and particularly the desire to be moved to a third country, is not the domain of the South African government to deal with, and that is the responsibility of the UNHCR. It is very unfortunate that the issues that prevailed sometime last year, where we had court rulings where the people were removed from the UNHCR offices, led to the people being left in spaces where particularly the South African government has got to deal with them. The South African government in this particular situation has done its duty in providing asylum and refugee to the people in question, and that is the responsibility of the South African government. But if the people now are unhappy about the conditions and the livelihood in South Africa, the first thing is to basically raise that with the government, like we have said also in the past that there can be negotiations to try and raise the grievances, especially when people are talking about the xenophobic attacks, and that is as far as it can go. But those are domestic problems that can be dealt with the South African government. On the one hand, the issue of being moved to a third country, it's an issue that has to be dealt with, particularly with the UNHCR, and in that particular light, it is therefore not an issue that can still be a problem, or that should be decided or dealt with the South African government. Now, when you look at the demands that have been put...
So much misunderstanding that's going on here, Vusumuzi, and I feel like there needs to be somebody in the middle, perhaps an organization like yours, the African Diaspora Forum, that comes in to mediate, because the people here don't believe what the UNHCR is saying, they don't believe what the government is saying, or the city. So who do they eventually listen to find a solution to this?
Well, from what Daniel was just saying now, I'm just slightly happy because he's saying that, look, there are 4 demands that have got to be met, or 5 that he counted, that, look, if those things are basically met, then some people, are likely to stay, though some people may obviously decide that they want to leave South Africa because they are on their way out. And this is what we had actually, initiated sometime in November when we got the South African Human Rights Commission, the Department of Home Affairs, to come together and sit and find a way forward. I think now it looks like it is right for a better mediation going forward, because the issue that we had said was, whilst, discussions are taking place to try and find a way forward, it is ideal that the people can find, accommodation, or a place where they can live if they don't have accommodation, where they can be safe and temporarily sheltered until, a resolution is basically found. So yes, there are issues which we can definitely see that, all parties, there is mistrust because of what has happened in the past. But I am glad, from what Daniel is saying, because that is an indication that there is a desire now to even consider the fact that, look, if the UNHCR is not willing, for example, to resettle these people to a third country, and the South African government says, yes, we understand the problems that you have, but, what are, the proposals? How do we solve them going forward? And at this particular juncture, I think that, these negotiations are likely to work.
Yeah, but the South African government says the only thing they can do is try to reintegrate these refugees and asylum seekers back into the communities they were actually fleeing from in the first place, and they don't want that. So I don't see a solution if that's the stand.
Well, look, I think what is happening is basically that, especially when we say that there are demands that the refugees are putting forward, and the South African government, what the South African government is saying is basically what it can do, and that is, within its jurisdiction, and it is the only thing that it can do to try and reintegrate, the refugees, because it is still providing, a refuge and asylum, to these, to the refugees and asylees that are in question. So what is required now is basically to say there is a commitment, from both the parties to sit down and say, what are the grievances, what are the problems that the refugees are bringing forward, and when those are brought forward and the government is saying, look, we are going to take seriously, the safety of, the refugees and asylees that are in the country, and ensure that laws are tightened to ensure that, attacks that are ordinarily done on these refugees, they carry maybe a severe kind of a penalty or sentence, and therefore to ensure that, there is peace. There are social cohesion programs, which we are also running, and, other departments of government like DECO that we've been talking to, who are willing, to come in and bring social cohesion projects and programs to ensure that there is peace, and stability and no animosity between, migrant communities and native South Africans. So I think at this particular stage, as much as, it looks like, two parties are too far apart, I think it looks like there is a convergence because the government of South Africa is prepared to reintegrate people into the communities.
All right, Vusumuzi Sibanda, the African Diaspora Forum in Johannesburg. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. So as we go to break, I want to leave you with some visuals of the realities that people are struggling with daily here. There's a sign that says, how are we going to be reintegrated when our brothers and sisters are dying in Diepsloot? UNHCR, please assist refugees. And we'll pull out of that shot and just leave you with the visuals of people who have basically made this their home. You'll see children sitting on the steps, living outside. You'll see blankets, tents, somebody actually cooking, because that will probably be their dinner tonight. We'll have more live from Cape Town in a moment. Stay with us. This is The Lead.